And thank you so much for being here today for a very, very important session. I'm going to do a very quick introduction of the speakers, and then I'll hand it over to them. And we can then also leave some time for question and answers right at the end. So if you do have questions, please please ask the speakers right at the end of the session, not during the session. Just helps with the flow. Okay, great. And on the chairs that you're sitting, we have also kept a questionnaire, which we'll during the session tell you when to look at, and also the report for your taking. Please do have a look at it. It's a very, very important report, and does tell you a lot of important facts and figures that may help you understand the situation a little bit better. So to start off with the introduction of the speakers, first we have Mr. Harish Menon. He's the chair of the Averting Student Suicide Research and Advocacy Task Force. He's a mission-driven leader in global education management and consulting. He led Office of CEO Strategic Initiatives, Finance Operations and International Management for programs like the SAT and Advanced Placement at College Board. He led Access and Equity initiatives for College Board in India as well. He's a board advisor at US and India-based education companies, and he's volunteering towards the new IC3 initiative of averting student suicides that we will talk about today. He did his BTech from IIT Bombay and Masters from Carnegie Mellon University in the US. Then we also have Dr. Preeti Kohli, who has been a consulting homeopathic physician for over 20 years and a transformational coach for about 12. She currently serves as a founding member and director of the AHA movement. She has successfully conducted over 200 workshops in alternative healing therapies. She was introduced to meditation and mindfulness at the age of 15, and her keen interest to understand the body, mind, and soul connection and help people grow holistically led her towards learning and practicing root cause therapies like inner child work, family constellation, breath work, regression therapy. She also volunteers to teach meditation to students or children at schools through the Soul Science Foundation. And if anyone's gone for the morning mind meditation workshops, she's been leading it with Mr. Ganesh Kohli as well. And a brief introduction of me, I'm Ratish. I am part of the IC3 Institute team as an academic manager. And I'm just going to keep my my introduction very short and leave and introduce Harish to start the presentation.
Good day to all of you. And thank you for joining us in today's session. And also thank you to those who are joining us virtually. But first of all, please join me in applauding the IC3 organizers for putting together such a wonderful program and bringing us this far. Yeah, thank you. Just so I can get a feel of this room, how many of you over here are from K-12? Okay, quite a good number of you. How about from higher ed? A few of you, okay. How many of you are perhaps mental health experts, psychologists, psychiatrists, either by trade or education? Quite a number of you. Thank you for joining us today. And maybe another couple of questions. How many of you may know of or may have heard of CPR? That's good, most of you, so that's good news. How about QPR or Safe Talk? I see one hand, I see two hands up. Okay, well, hopefully that will change over time and we'll be more aware about it. But for those of you who do not know what QPR or Safe Talk is, it's the CPR equivalent for suicide prevention. Well, so today I stand in here in front of you, joined by Ratish and Dr. Preeti, to share with you about this growing shadow of student suicides that's sweeping India. On August 14th, an 18-year-old boy died by suicide in Kota in his hostel room. And just on that same day in Chennai, a man died of suicide after his son had died of suicide the day before. And why did that son die of suicide? Because he failed a highly competitive exam, not once, but twice. And a week earlier, a 21-year-old girl, a first-year MTech student right here in Hyderabad, died of suicide. And she was found by her classmates hanging from the ceiling fan in her hostel room. Did you know that before this session ends, one student in India will die of suicide? we have a national crisis at hand. Many youngsters are dying of suicide. And while the leading cause of death amongst youth across the world is road accidents, here in India, it's suicides. And now, while not any one person or organization is responsible about this problem, it's, however, our collective responsibility to tackle and address this issue. Together, we can no longer look the other way. And so I'm so proud that IC3 has taken a stance to commit to act to address this grave issue. And so we've released a report which sheds light on some of the statistics and trends of student suicides in India and explores some of the initiatives and experiments that are taking place around the world to address student suicides in respective countries. And secondly, and we'll talk about this later, but IC3 is going to launch an initiative, a task force that aims to bring educators, counselors, mental health experts, policymakers, and other leaders to come together and address this very grave issue that faces our students here in India. Now, over the next few slides, I will walk you through some of these statistics and trends of student suicides in India. But first, a little bit about the data that we used. To prepare this report, we used data from the National Crime Records Bureau, NCRB, who in turn sourced the data from police recorded FIRs. And NCRB publishes all this data annually in a publication called Accidental Deaths and Suicides in India. Now, for the purposes of the analysis in this report, we used 2 decades of data, starting from 2001 to 2021. And we could only use data until 2021 because that is the latest year of data that is published. 2022 and 2023 data will be published later. But a caution about the data that's reported. Some studies indicate that the number of student suicides that's recorded and reported are likely lower than the actual numbers because of issues like social stigma and criminalization of suicides here in India. For those who are from abroad, yes, suicide is a criminal offense in India. However, the Mental Health Care Act in 2017 does decriminalize suicide in cases of mental health illness. Also, the data collection processes in rural areas may not be as robust as the data collection processes in urban areas. And so researchers recommend that to obtain more accurate data, one ought to use surveys along with the NCRB data, as well as look at the medically certified causes of death. And so I'm going to now walk you through some of the data points that we uncovered from 2 decades of reporting by the NCRB. I apologize for the charts or the tables. They're a bit of an eyesore, but you can refer to them in the report. And the first is there has been an unprecedented surge in student suicides over the last few years. 13,089 suicides in 2021. And that's a 4.5% increase compared to the year 2020. And in fact, the 2020 count is 21% higher than the 2019 count. Over the decade of from 2012 to 2021, around 98,000 students died by suicide. And this is a 57% increase compared to the prior decade. Over the last decade, from 2012 to 2021, there has been a 70% increase in student suicides, from 7,700 to 13,089. And when you compare this number of student suicides with the total number of suicides or the population of the country, what you'll find is that the number of student suicides is increasing at a much higher rate than 2 data points: the population of 0 to 24-year-olds in the country, as well as the total number of suicides across the country. In fact, you can look at the slopes of these 2 lines. The blue line represents student suicides, and the orange line represents total suicides across the country. And you can see that the blue line is first over the orange line, and it's increasingly diverging away. That's worrisome. When we look at the data and break it down by gender, we find that both male and female student suicides have surged. Now, the male student suicide numbers are higher than female student suicides. And researchers believe that that might be because male students likely tend to use means that have a higher probability that leads to death. But I just want to point out that I think it behooves for our country to start recording and reporting data for our transgender students. And when we look at this data and break it down by state and regions in the country, what you'll find is that Maharashtra is the state that records the most number of student suicides across all the states and union territories in the country. And this story has repeated over and over again, year over year. Maharashtra is always top on the list. Madhya Pradesh and Tamil Nadu also recorded more than 1,000 student suicides in 2021. And the states of Karnataka and Odisha wrap up the top 5 states list. Sadly and scaringly, the states of Jharkhand and Rajasthan over the last 5 years have recorded an increase of student suicides by 3x, 3 times. And when you look at the data by regions across the country, 29% of the total suicides across the country are reported from South India, from the states and union territories that make up the Southern India. That's 29%. But add Maharashtra and South Indian numbers together, that percentage increases from 29 to 43%. But there's an interesting statistic that we uncovered, and there's something interesting going on in the state of West Bengal. And it's a very good story. They seem to have bucked and reversed the trend of student suicides in their state. In the last 5 years, there's been a decrease of 76% student suicides in that state. And so it behooves us to understand what's going on in that state and learn from the best practices over there. Student suicides are now surpassing farmer suicides. In 2021, there were 13,089 student suicides versus the approximately 11,000 farmer suicides that were recorded. And according to a Gallup study that was done on behalf of UNICEF across 21 countries around the world, many 15 to 24-year-olds have reported often feeling depressed. And so in countries like Cameroon, Mali, and Indonesia, it's 1 in 3 students reporting feeling depressed. In countries like the United Kingdom and Kenya, it's 1 in 5. And down that list to Japan, it's 1 in 10. Here in India, it's 1 in 7. Now, these are very, very large numbers. We are losing way too many lives, and they're dying of suicide at a very young age. And at a time and age where in India, we have ample of opportunities and options that are available to our youth. Heck, India just landed on the moon yesterday. That literally means that the sky is no longer the limit for the youth of our country. Now, there are many reasons for why there is an increase in student suicides in India. Stress in exams, forced career and course options that's forced onto the students, regardless of where their true interests lie, unhappy family environments, lack of counseling support in many education institutions, and sadly, at a community level, the social stigma against mental health. So this begs the question, what do we do now? And I believe that a large part of this answer lies with us teachers and counselors. You see, as teachers, we see these students every day. We actually probably see them for more hours than they're seen by their family and friends. We are invested, truly invested in their happiness and success. And so I will leave it for Ratish to talk you through the role of schools and educators in promoting mental well-being. But I want to spend a few minutes in talking about this broader issue of social stigma. when we think about health, generally the image that conjures up in our mind is very positive. It's that of nutrition, exercising, a balanced life of family, work, and leisure. But add the word mental in front of the health, and suddenly, in India at least, the image turns dark. The kind of words and vocabulary that's used or associated with mental health is mad, crazy, possessed, right? These kind of behaviors and attitudes to mental health ought to change. But where are these children learning this also from? You see, children emulate adults. And in that same Gallup survey that was done for UNICEF, across nations surveyed, many students actually expressed a very strong preference of talking about their issues and seeking support for their mental health challenges. But but there was another cross-sectional study that was done with secondary school teachers in South India. 566 teachers were surveyed, and 70% of them believed that depression was not an illness, but a weakness. They thought that it was something that's very unpredictable, but not dangerous. Right? So we adults, we ourselves need to change our behaviors and attitudes towards mental health. We need to educate ourselves, raise our own literacy on mental health, and then and only then can we truly listen to our students. Also, mental health it's not a disorder. It's also not the absence of a disorder. If you look at the definition by the World Health Organization, they actually include the word mental health in the definition of health. And it goes as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and in the absence of any disease or infirmities. So we have clearly a big problem in terms of social stigma and mental health literacy in our country. But sadly, our students are also not allowed to feel depressed, right? And I think that's because of us adults. Because typically, let's say a kid does muster the courage to walk up to their parents and admit that they have an issue. They're struggling mentally. I'm sure you'll all maybe agree with me or maybe not, but generally that conversation may derail off as, are you mad? Are you mad that you want to see a psychiatrist? No. Just study a little harder and maybe it'll all go away. Or sometimes the parent will scold the child and say, what a shame you're bringing to our family. If you didn't want to study this course, you should have told us before. Look how much it has costed the family. No one is really trying to understand that the child is suffering. And so as step 0, not even step 1, step 0, we need to raise mental health literacy in India. And it begins in our homes. It begins in our classrooms. It's in how we see our students and how we talk to them. Now, globally, suicide is a major problem. I think it is a myth that students in wealthy nations are generally happy. Students in wealthy nations also suffer from stress, anxiety. Physical well-being is also a problem. And in many studies, what you will find is that countries like Netherlands and most of the Nordic nations, they typically rank high in mental well-being of their students. Teen satisfaction typically in these countries typically rank very high. And researchers attribute the optimism to very positive interactions that are happening within the social spheres around these students. Supportive home environments, egalitarian climates in the school, trusting relationships with teachers, and beyond all, very supportive environments that are in their homes, but also extend beyond the homes and into the classrooms amongst their peers and friends. But suicide does remain a leading cause of death in many countries. And in many of the rich nations, more than 10 in 100,000 students die of suicide. But I think there is hope because there are several initiatives and experiments that are being implemented across the world. In countries like Kenya and the Philippines, national open helplines and youth-led wellness chat lines are available for students to call in anonymously, talk about their problems. And researchers have indeed found that such interventions does save lives. You see, because when a student has already ideated in their mind and has decided to act upon those suicidal thoughts, they actually start talking about it. And why they're talking about it is because they want to be heard. And why do they want to be heard? Because they actually don't want to die. Countries like the Republic of Ireland have implemented social emotional learning programs that are very well integrated within their school curriculum. Please.
There's some moment, telling them, if you're not able, we are the career counselors, right? So we're not the behavioral ones. If they're coming up with those thoughts and we cannot encourage, I mean, it's a very debatable question. We should go tell them, go and meet, because the parents' perspective is totally different.
Yeah.
Right. So when my daughter even came to me last year, I wanted to go and see a psychiatrist. And I was like taken aback. Though I was studying this, but still I was like, try yourself first.
Yeah.
It may be on your head. So how to distinguish between, like that kind of a line, this actually needing, or they are coming, or it's just the peer pressure, or everybody's going and everybody's talking. So they are also thinking in that ways. How to identify actually going with the kind of a phase towards these kinds of thoughts, because it's really very scary. A student of class 10th grade of a school from Rishikesh, I am so. Week before, she committed suicide because of her 10th marks. Fine. And these kinds of, when students are discussing these things, 10th grade, my God, nearby school, must be some of the friends, the building up that pressure. They take certain things on them, right? That coming, talking with parents' perspective is totally different. अरे कुछ नहीं है, सब ठीक हो जाएगा, दिमाग में बना रखा है इन्होंने अपने. वहाँ कैसे सर गाइड करें हम बच्चों को, and parents of course, so that ultimately they come to us. आपने ऐसा कैसे बोल दिया बच्चे को? Our child don't need a psychiatrist. The word ही इतना ज़्यादा taboo है sir. So please.
Yeah. And could you please share your name and which school you're from?
Ritu Chandani from DSB International School, Rishikesh.
Yeah. No, first of all, thank you for sharing examples from your life and from your school. I mean, that is the difficult question. How do we solve this problem? And actually later on, Dr. Preeti is going to talk about some techniques of identifying such problems. But that is essentially what we are trying to embark on, which is truly trying to identify evidence-based, research-based approaches in first how to sensitize the topic, how to raise there's an education and a training that we are all going to have to require. Not just me, not just you, ma'am, not just all of us here in this room, but I believe every single parent and person in our country. So you raise a very valid question, ma'am. It's a very loaded question, and it's very difficult to answer it. But there is evidence around the world that various techniques do work. And actually, in India, in the state of Bihar, an experiment was conducted in several government schools, and they did find a lot of benefits in terms of the confidence that was built in their students, and just the students being open in talking about their challenges. So, there's going to be a bit of training and education required for all of us professionals. But thank you for your question. Just to conclude about some of the other programs around the world, in a country like Kazakhstan, as part of the President's National Action Plan, mental health literacy which is something I think we need to do, is a very important initiative. And over there, they require their parents to provide consent to allow their children to go for mental health screenings as part of their annual physical health checkup. And in countries like Peru and Lebanon, they use community-based mental health care. They have figured out how to use the power of communities to work with students and provide the care that the students require. So earlier I said there is a very important role for us school educators and counselors to promote mental well-being for our students, but I will let Ratish talk to us through it all. Thank you.
Thank you, Harish, for the shocking numbers, I would say. And when Harish and I started this journey of doing this research and figuring out what exactly is taking place, one of the first things I did was put an alert on my phone for news related to student suicides in India. Every couple of days, my phone was buzzing with that. And that was a shocking reality for me to sort of go through. As someone who's also worked as a counselor, I've never really delved deep into what we can do as educators and school professionals to provide that support. Very recently, as we were having the press conference for the report itself, on the very same day in Kota, Kota administrator or people who are in charge of lodging for students at Kota were asked to put or install fans which have a spring which will detach automatically once the weight is too much, as a solution to stop student suicides. And that was after the third suicide in August itself. Kota has become a suicide cluster in that sense, and many JEE aspirants who go there who are not wanting to be part of that process are unfortunately ending their lives in a very shocking manner for that way. But is it all doom and gloom? And I think seeing the number here today, I feel there is certainly hope. I think people are and educators are very, very interested in figuring out what the solution could be. And I think counseling can provide that support. When I was a school student, I never had a counselor, but seeing this on a daily basis, coming for this conference, seeing the energy from everyone as counselors, as school educators to come and, provide the best support possible for the students is really, really encouraging. And I think finding purpose for students, not just inside the classrooms, apart from their academic pursuits, I think we need to find and help them find purpose outside of it as well. And we need to embrace a holistic approach so that we are taking care of all the needs that are there of the students as they are embarking on a very, very difficult journey into adulthood. And everyone remembers that change that took place after 15, 16 into when you have to go to college, when you have to find your first job. That is a stressful period. So providing that support and giving them the tools to work with is extremely, extremely important. And when do we do this? As early as possible, right? There is no need to wait for a particular time, a particular grade. I think mental health support should be provided as soon as possible. If the students or the children are asking questions, then we should not discourage those questions, and we should help them find that support whenever we can and whenever it's necessary. And one of the important points that Harish also raised is that students are told by adults, this is not something that you should be doing. You should not ask for a psychiatrist. This is all, work harder, don't do this, don't do that. But I think what we need to do as adults is encourage that help-seeking behavior from students so that they come to us. They don't feel afraid. They don't feel like it's a taboo to ask for mental health support, and we can provide that support to them. And it's extremely, extremely important. And what I think we can do is maybe help create a supportive environment. Our role as school educators is extremely important. Early intervention, there have been multiple studies where you can have certain interventions taking place from grade 1 till 12th. And they've been divided into 3 tiers as per research, where tier 1 targets students who may fall into mental health concern, it doesn't really mean that they have ideated suicide or have committed suicide. So that practice can be done across every grade. And I've elaborated a little bit more on the report itself. I'm not going to go deep dive into it right now. Tier 2 sort of initiatives are there where students are who may be ideating, who have shown that concern. There are certain practices that you can conduct in your schools as well. I've linked the research where you can go find these practices that you can maybe do. They also tell you how much time you need to spend on each of these practices, when you can do them, what is the appropriate time in terms of the annual calendar when you have to do it. So all of these practices which are being practiced sort of globally can be used to benefit the students in this regard. And then tier 3 practices are there where students have actually committed the act. And how many of us know that it's a criminal activity to commit suicide, and if you do fail in India, and that's a shocking fact, right? I've known about it, but when I was doing this research, more and more that point kept on hitting me. It's like, okay, how do we decriminalize this? And the Mental Health Act tries to do that. NEP also discusses that a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's still a criminal activity. And that's a very, very difficult thing for students once they are already not in the right state of mind, and then they have attempted suicide, they have not been successful in that, and then we deem it as a criminal activity. So that's something that we should question. We should figure out what the right solution is, and I think building that early support is extremely, extremely important. ASCA also has, I'm sure everyone sort of knows, American School Council Association. So they have steps that you can sort of take, and I've elaborated that on the report itself, that you can take as a reference point to begin action in your schools as well. And I think what's really important now is to understand our own sort of behavior, our own sort of body language when we are speaking to students, when we are discussing mental health with them. And I think there's no one better to discuss this than Dr. Preeti Kohli, who is absolutely amazing at this stuff. There is a questionnaire that has been given with the booklet. If you don't have the questionnaire, please seek support from someone on your left or you're on your right. But it's a very short questionnaire, very small answers. She will guide you through it through her presentation, and I'll just leave it to Dr. Preeti Kohli. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Ratish. And thank you for bringing me in. And it was absolutely shocking to really see the figures as he approached me to work on this. And I actually just working with many people, many students, many parents. I'm just bringing to you a little experience of my work. And as I just started kind of introspecting and working on this, I met a friend. She herself is a therapist, a psychologist. And I spoke to her and she said, it's shocking that you're talking to me about it. Because just 15 days back, I was sitting with my friend. We were having coffee together. And in the evening, about 7, 8 p.m., and she gets a call. She said, my son is fallen down. I need to go immediately. So she leaves the conversation in between. And she goes back home to find out that this boy has jumped from the 23rd floor. And he's dead. Now she's saying, I still have goosebumps. I mean, as even I now have, as I'm telling you about this. And as she met this friend later a couple of times, they are just in complete shock. Now this child told the mother and the father, I need to talk to somebody. And what did the father say? What did the mother say? I'm there for you. Come talk to me. Right? He was trying to tell them that I need help. But somewhere, obviously, even if whatever that he was able to talk with them was not helping, or he was not able to open up. But this woman was a regular parent. I mean, like most other parents would be. And this is actually a pandemic that we see. A lot of us, if our child actually told us today that I want to go and seek professional help, I need to talk to somebody, how would we deal with it? Or may I even gather the courage to ask, if tomorrow you are going through stress, would you have the courage to say, I need help? I'm not able to, this is becoming too much. Let me go and say, It takes courage for me to say, I can't deal everything by myself. Let me go up to somebody and take help. Just like we do in every other thing that we do in life, right? For everything, we are seeking help. Can we not do that? And why is it that we have come here at this point today, friends? Obviously, we all are more educated, but something has lagged behind. Our education system in the last century, we focus too much on the outside. Have we learned how to manage our inner world? How to manage our own emotions? How to really deal with it? And that's the lack that we really see. So we are going to really talk a little more about that. But really, what we need to pay attention to is, are we really open to talking about mental health? And when we are saying it, let's imagine somebody close to us. If we are actually not open here, if we are not open here in our hearts, even if you try to show it with your words, your body language is going to show to you, to the child, right? Your child is going to know when the child is coming and saying, Mama, this is what is happening to me. If you are judging it, if you're not feeling okay with it, your child knows it. Even if you try to say in the words all the right things. So we really have to work on our own selves. We have to open our hearts, our minds up to really these issues, to really for these students, but more so first for our own selves. Because somewhere we have been closed to it also. So to a large extent, of course, we know that the mental health, talking about mental health has been an issue, and Harish ji just spoke about it. A lot of stigma is really attached to it. A lot of kids I'm getting, so luckily none of the suicides, but I have so many kids who are self-harming, who cut their wrists, who make cuts on their own thighs. And a child who was brought to me, she's been telling for the last 2 years to her mother, I need help. And the mother literally would shame her, say, you know, there are things that you need to work for, you need to work towards it, you have to become strong. So the mother so much has been shaming her that, you know, you're weak, that you're saying that you need help for this. And luckily that the child has not really gone ahead and taken some grave steps. And finally, she really said, I really need this help. And she started coming to me. So the way that we all as educators have learned to focus, and more so this has happened because when we were being brought up, our parents were really focusing on this, our parents as well as educators. Our system has been very behavior focused. We are focusing too much on the behavior. So when it's a wrong behavior, we are trying to correct it. When it's a right behavior, it's a good behavior, we are rewarding it. But we need to learn to look underlying what's happening. So if we learn to understand deeper than the behavior would be attitude. So when the person behaves in the same way again and again, we would say this is the way this person's attitude is. Underlying that, if we learn to look deeper, there are feelings. And underlying the feelings are needs. All of us would have needs. When our needs are met with, they are fulfilled, we would feel good. When our needs are not met with, we don't feel good, right? When I'm saying that feeling good and feeling not good are very, very just broader terms, right? In the languages, when we say we feel good, we would say these are love-based emotions. We feel expansive. You'll feel happy, compassionate, loving, all of those feelings. Whereas when you're not feeling good, you would not feel very good in your body as well. Your nervous system will kind of be recording it, right? And that time, what would happen? You may be angry, you may be sad, you may be depressed, you may be anxious, you may be jealous, right? If Ritu ma'am got something which I also wanted and I couldn't, is it not natural for me to feel jealous? Yeah, we all will feel jealous. But what have we been told? If we were angry, we were told, you're a bad person. Yeah, it's wrong to be angry. Jealous person, oh my God, very bad, right? I remember one adult coming to me. Her husband had died in a car accident. And after 2, 3 years, she was with me and she was working with a mental health professional. She used to come to me for homeopathy medicine. And I sensed that there was some discomfort that she was not really openly sharing. And I just mentioned to her about this feeling need. She said, oh my God, I feel such a relief. I said, what happened? And she said that I have been feeling I'm such a bad person because every time I'm now looking at a beautiful couple, I feel so jealous. And I'm feeling I'm such a jealous person. Oh my God, so bad. Right? Now, this, friends, is a very automatic response in us. How many of us have learned to say it's okay if I'm feeling angry? How many of us judge ourselves the moment anger comes or sadness comes? Can I see some hands? Angry, how many of us feel comfortable? It's okay, I'm feeling angry. No? So we feel comfortable. We acknowledge, right? Right.
Counseling sessions and also
Yes.
it's all right.
Absolutely.
There's nothing wrong. I mean, it is
Absolutely.
okay.
Yes.
Yes.
It's important to validate it. Exactly. So Harish ji was saying we have to educate ourselves. And when ma'am is saying I've gone for sessions, what she's done is she's re-educated us herself. That, automatically, when the time that we were growing up, people would not really talk about emotions. A man was told, if you are crying, you're weak, right? Are you a girl? What that meant was that the woman was considered weak. And if you were crying, that was a sign of weakness, right? So many people who come for the workshops, when we do inner child healing workshop, the men are not able to cry at all, right? And it's so difficult for them to cry. So when the needs are not met with, it's absolutely natural to feel these emotions. And to re-educate yourself, friends, I would love for you to um, see online a list for feelings and needs. Okay, NVC, nonviolent communication, which we've spoken about in the cohort, but they've actually listed down. So we have to really educate ourselves about the inner world. So when you're feeling something, are you able to identify what am I feeling? Are you able to feel okay about feeling that? So if I'm feeling jealous at the moment, it's okay. I don't have to act out of the jealousy. I don't have to act out of anger. I don't have to project the anger on somebody. But the fact that I'm feeling it for the moment, can I validate that? And that's one important thing. So in the inner child, when we actually do these needs bit, right, we'll actually see some of the needs of each child, of all children. Some of the needs are very basic, for every age, and some are age specific. So some of the common needs, because mostly people are obviously aware of the physical needs, mental needs only limited. Need to feel wanted is something that every child has. Not wanted for performing something, but just wanted for the way you are. Now in India, 50% of the women actually don't have that basic need met. Because when they were being born, the parents wanted a boy, right? You were not wanted for being a girl. Now you're born, and over a period of time, maybe they've accepted. So deep inside, we may actually be carrying a feeling like I'm not wanted for who I am. I keep working, I keep doing things for everybody so that now will I at least get the love. So some of these needs, friends, I'm not going to go into detail of all because otherwise we can just spend an hour on this slide. But a lot of them in our unconscious are not met with. Need to feel safe and secure, inspired and motivated to learn, need for respect of boundaries, which is so important in the age group that we are dealing with. Need to be given firm and loving limits. Not only do we need to give them freedom, of course, freedom we speak about so much now, but also it is so important to give firm and loving limits, right? Need to be encouraged in discovering and exploring their unique gifts and validated or seen by the gender that they are attracted to. Okay. Yeah. So basically what is happening in the developmental stage, the kids that you are seeing, the age that we are talking about, friends, what is the development that's happening? Apart from, of course, wanting to be just wanted by their parents, they are now developing more interest. They're getting clear as to what subjects they want to pursue, what is it that they like, and they start feeling attracted to a particular gender, right? And they need to see in the eyes of that gender that they are okay. So when I'm attracted to somebody, if that person likes me, I feel, yes, I'm okay, right? I'm good. Whereas if that person doesn't like me, I feel I'm not good enough. That's a very natural thing that happens at this stage. The other thing that happens is, of course, when we start knowing, okay, I want to become a doctor, then I'm able to actually study for that. I'm able to commit for that. Now, in each stage of development, when that stage is going well, so when I'm able to commit, when I'm able to commit to this relationship, that gives me that developmental thing, the quality that's supposed to develop in that stage. So the ego strength that comes at this stage is fidelity. They learn to commit themselves. By committing in that one relationship that may be there, they are committing themselves. That is, their entire being is learning to commit. And also, obviously, when they are committing to the subject, also they are doing that. Now, obviously, a lot of these youngsters, when they go for, go and tell them, I'm confused. A lot of the times, what have the parents or the teacher said? I'm at 40 still confused. What are you talking about at 16? Right? Now, when we say that, we are not validating their feelings. We are trivializing them. We may have the best intentions, but if we have not learned to validate our own feelings and recognize that I am feeling this and how do I work with this, I am not going to be able to validate the feelings for the child. We are able to be present to the other person only to the level that we are present to for our own selves. So if I do not see that this is what I'm feeling, I can sit with it. Okay. Like when I said before, when we have been brought up, we have been told, put this feeling aside. There's no need to be sad. Right? As a child, if you started feeling sad because it started to rain, or if you were crying when you were refused a toy, there's no need to be sad. You have so many toys. Come on, you're just an ungrateful person. You just have to get up and go and play with whatever. So what happened was you were not allowed to feel what you were feeling. Now, when your kid is going to feel something, it's going to trigger you. Mind you, all the thing that we may have here about mental health, but if we have not looked within, our child feeling something is going to trigger that within us. So we have to work on our own selves, right? And these are real cases, friends. I'm saying when people had a breakup, right? Oh, of course, thank God you had your first heartbreak. It's big deal for the child. You cannot just say that this happens to everybody. We can't laugh it off. Yes, Ritu ma'am.
So correlating. Actually, it happens. It's they come to us, especially. They're telling this, it happens, they're feeling low and sad. But our point is motivating them towards certain. That is our perspective actually. We don't want them to let down. But then this is our way to make them keep if it is not okay, you don't need to get sad with certain things. There are better things lined up. So where are we doing wrong? We don't know.
Beautiful, ma'am. So that's what we say that, wherever they say that this mother was not wrong, but all the things that happen on hindsight, whenever parents feel that it was a mistake, it's never lack of love. It is lack of awareness. So we are never saying that the parent's intention was not right or the educator's intention was not right. But you are saying to encourage the child, but it is not. The child, the feelings, it's a basic need. The feelings need to be validated. Okay, you are saying get on with it. Emotions are energy. Okay, let's understand. I'm feeling sad. That emotion is an energy. Energy cannot be destroyed or created. basic principle we all know. It can only be transformed. Now, when I'm saying get going with it, I'm saying suppress the emotion. That energy is getting blocked and it will keep coming up. I have very little time, so let me just cover this, then we'll take on the questions. Yeah. So emotions form the basic blueprint. That's our basic energy. Every child, first there are emotions. The child feels in the womb. When they're born, they feel. They start thinking only at 7. So emotions are most important, and we all have to really repair our relationship with emotions. We have to pay attention. So let's just quickly see what are the common ways in which adults respond. So just Rituman said, right? What is this? This is denial of feelings. Okay, get going with it. That's denial of feelings. The other is we give philosophical response, breakup. This happens, this will happen. Don't worry, this is life. Right? We become too philosophical. That doesn't help the child. The other is starting to give advice. Why don't you do this? Why don't you just, start looking at some other girls? I'm sure you'll find somebody, right? We think they'll start feeling better about themselves. They're feeling so down. We can start giving advice. Or why don't you kind of look at this subject? So, whichever area that we are talking about, we start giving advice, we start asking questions. They don't really need your, when we say counseling, it's more about hearing. They don't need advice. The children will find their way. We can't protect them from problems. We have to be the examples that, yes, problem is there. I'm here for you. Face the problem. We will be with you, right? We have to repair this relationship that I'm present here. And let them see in you that you really face the problems and come out of it. That is what is going to build the resilience in them. So these are some of the common responses. What is important, friends, if after this conversation today, can you go back and see one emotion, okay, where you felt really, really bad? Can you sit with it, not philosophize it, not trivialize it? Can you sit with that emotion? Can you validate that emotion? That's our very first step towards being that empathetic being to whom children will be able to come and feel safe sharing. Okay. And I think we can skip this. So what we need to do is attentive listening, acknowledge their emotion, never trivialize them. And if by automatic response, that's what you tend to do, okay, you can go back. It's okay. When you feel that, oh shit, I did that, right? You can go back and just be there for them. And completely no judgment, whatever that they may be going through. For you, it may be very small. For them, if it is big, it is big, right? Just be there for them. Thank you. Thank you, Ratish.
Now we'll have Harish to speak about the task force for a bit, or no, we can just address the questions as they come if you want.
All right, I think we are nearly at time, so I'm going to make this very quick. But I think the bottom line here is that students shouldn't be preparing to take their lives, and this has got to stop. I'm reminded of a story by Lawrence C. Aisley. How many of you know about the story of the starfish? Some of you do. For those of you who don't know, there's this old man who approaches the beach and he sees this young girl running frantically up and down the shores of the beach. And as he approaches her, he notices two things. One is there's thousands of starfish that have been washed ashore. And this little girl is like running up and down, picking each starfish and hurling them into the sea. And so he asks the girl, "What are you doing? Clearly, you cannot save all these starfish. It's a futile exercise." To which the girl simply does. She bends down, picks one starfish, hurls it into the ocean, and tells him, "Instead of talking to me, why don't we just both do this?" And as many people approach the beach and observe what the old man and the young girl are doing, they all join in the effort, and all the starfish get saved. So I am actually really proud to be standing here in front of you and share with you that IC3 is launching a task force, Averting Student Suicide Research and Advocacy Task Force. And this is what is required, a unified and concerted action plan, action from all of us. I'm not going to go through all these details, but there's clearly a lot of work to be done. We need to raise mental health literacy in our country. We need to continue accurately tracking and collecting both data and research about what's driving student suicides, and using that information to design and develop evidence-based approaches that can help address this issue. There has to be a lot of communications, outreach, social campaigns to just simply raise awareness, not just for teachers and counselors, although I think they will have to drive a large part of this problem, but also of parents and all the other stakeholders that impact our students. When Ganesh ji approached me and asked me to contribute my time, I readily raised my hand to volunteer for this task force. And so I stand here seeking your help, your expertise, and your solidarity to join the task force. We need each and every one of us. I must admit, though, I wondered if I was doing this, was this too personal to me? Because I do have a few family members and friends who are suffering from depression, and it has impacted and fractured family relationships. So was this too personal for me? And later on, yes, it is personal for me, but it's also personal for each and every one of us. And we need all of us to work together to solve this problem. And so, we can no longer be silent. Let us not fail future generations. The time is to act now. Thank you.
Hi, very quickly, we can take a few questions if you have any. Oh, so many.
Hi, this is for Preeti. See, you just mentioned resilience, by the way, as you're closing it. See, when we realize that aspect of growing up, so children also need to be modeled into behaviors that will promote resilience in them in trying to raise children. I personally feel that the disappointments that were prevalent when we grew up. So when something was asked, there was always a 50% chance of somebody saying no to it. And when something need to happen, there's always a 50% chance of it not happening. So you sort of set your routines based on, this will happen, this will not happen. And I am sorry that is missing in the current day parenting. So how are we going to impart as a very essential aspect of development the quality of resilience? So
one of the aspects that we definitely see is dealing with emotions. So resilience it's if we understand like a spring, right? You are stretched apart and then you come back to your normal shape. So you're allowed to feel what you feel, and emotions, the way their nature is that they pass. So it comes and it goes. So you will go through a disappointment and then you will come back to it. Unfortunately, this generation, the way that the parenting is, the parents are very busy. So they don't have much time, but they're trying to compensate everything in other ways. So materially, they're giving everything. They're carrying their fears and they're trying to be overly protective. So a lot of the times we have to actually tell the parents that let them experience life. You don't have to be so overprotective. So just a lot of it, the work needs to be done, of course, with the parents or as educators, when we are really kind of allowing them to go through the difficulties and, kind of giving them the required support so that they are able to experience this, that yes, they may fall, but they rise again. They fall, then they rise again. Let them experience the fall and the rise. And that's what really helps them to develop this resilience. Thank you.
I will take maybe last couple.
And if I just add a couple of points to that, I think also in our mode of trying to build resilience to our children, let us not forget about showing love and compassion. Resilience does not mean that we need to make it strong. And, along with that, we need to also, I don't want to use the word mold, but we need to unfold them, to be able to love themselves and love others. and it might be cliche and as simple as saying love and compassion, but I think those are probably two very important key things that might be missing.
Hi, I think this was a great session, firstly, and I'm really glad that a topic like this is being touched upon and discussed at such length, and the fact that we've got a great audience here. For someone who's just touching 30s, I'd like to say I'm probably in the middle of that sort of generation of senior educators who come here with a lot more experience than perhaps what I would have. But also someone who kind of relates to mental health challenges. Openness to therapy, counseling is also a lot more. Happy to share, I've been through those experiences. But one thing I've realized, at least for myself, and this is a personal belief, not backed on any research, you get more sensitized as you yourself start going through that experience. As you start acknowledging that, yes, there are mental health challenges in your own everyday life. And as you then start speaking to your students, you start to relate to those issues a lot more. And when we say mental health challenges, it's not chronic cases of depression where you're really dealing with challenges where you're on the brink of suicide. It could be very little things as just dealing with the overwhelming stress that just comes with high school, profile building, pressure of applications, could be as little as that. Where I'm going with the question is, what can educators do, parents do I mean, I went to therapy and that helped me, but it's hard for everyone to do that. Therapy is not something that is very affordable in today's day. How do we sensitize our own selves so we can be a little more empathetic with the students as well?
You want to tag on to the question? Yeah.
I feel we can practice empathy. That's the feeling when we put ourselves in other people's shoes and we try to imagine. So, as educators, we really need to practice empathy and actually see the situation as the student is seeing. And then we can start from there.
Oh, absolutely, ma'am. I'll just approach that question in two points. I think if you're already chasing the student that is at risk, then we have to be a little careful and really use scientific approaches that are already out there in how to approach this problem. I mentioned the QPR and Safe Talk. There are various other methodologies that we can go through that training. It does not take much time, but that provides us with the tools and resources on just how to interact with these students at risk, and then eventually refer them to a mental health expert. I think that's very key. Secondly, for students who are not at risk, which is generally, I mentioned in my speech, it always starts at the home and in the classroom. Dr. Preeti mentioned about attentive listening. And I think that's what we need to do is just listen to our children and really understand what they are saying. I don't think we're giving much time to our children and listening to what they're actually feeling. I think that would just go a long way. Because children most likely know what the answer is. They just want to be heard. Probably validation is not the right word, but they also want to see the adults sort of like agree with them. And just, a nod here and there. Yes, I agree with you, but perhaps it's this. And I mean, situations are very specific. And so you just want to have to read the situation and figure out how to approach it. But love, empathy, attentive listening, I think these are some basic things that we need to practice. And if the student is already at risk, I think we have to approach it very carefully and use all these scientific-based approaches that are already out there on how to improve.
Beautiful. And just adding to that, similar, simple things like in a classroom. Now, this child is getting depressed, is dealing with something. How would you know? The child also may not be aware of it, but they may look more tired. The child may look more sleepy, more distracted. Now, what will you see in the classroom? The child is not attentive. The child is looking somewhere else, forgets to finish the homework, right? And a lot of the times, what we do as an educator, we may just focus on why have you not completed your work. Now, can we learn to look deeper? Why is this child not attentive? Maybe something is happening. So if we as educators, we develop that eye to look deeper, That's what we'll start catching this. It doesn't have to go up to that stage. We just, we sit with them. Okay, what's happening with you? Is there something that's been bothering you? Provide that space for them to introspect, to look deeper, and to talk about it.